and everything Overwatch. I am your host as always. My name never changes, Veritech. I'm joined here by my lovely co-hosts, Old One Eye and Tifa Please, and we have a new guest co-host this week, a very good friend of mine in One Eyes. His name is Konshu, filling in because Azax is currently off battling the employment boss, and we wish him the best, and hopefully he gets fat loots from that. But guys, One Eye, we played a couple times this week, but really not that much. Other than that, how's your
I
week
got a
been
lot of
going?
good footage, dude. I know we only played a little bit, but I got 6 hours of absolutely hilarious footage. I've just been editing a lot this week. I've been trying to get back into the groove of things because I've had some things coming down the pipe for multi-tapped. And man, when we played Route 66, I'm pretty sure I'm addicted to it. It's like just pretty wildly imbalanced at this point, but that level's just making the game for me right now. It's just so fun. It really is. It's great. So that's pretty much been my week, is just Route 66 and going through footage.
Nice, awesome. And then Tifa, like we almost never are on Overwatch at the same time. I see you on when I'm like just in BattleNet, and then like when I'm playing or streaming, you're at work. So how's your week going? I know you literally just got done playing with Cloud9, so I'm kind of jealous. But other than that, how's it been?
It's been great. I really like the weekly brawls that they just came out with. Oh, that's really fun. And like when I said the Route 66, that's a really fun game. And like you said, it's pretty imbalanced, but it's still fun. And I really like the art style of that map. So kudos to Blizzard.
Right on. Yeah, it's definitely becoming one of my favorites for sure. And I hope I get to play a lot more because as I play it, I definitely feel a lot more comfortable, and I don't feel like such a scrub. But like I said, we got a special guest this week. You can't see his face because he was having some camera issues. His Skype updated, and unfortunately decided that we didn't need to see Konshu's beautiful mug. However, he is here, and he is to my right. So Konshu, man, how's it going? We normally talk during my stream and during your stream, but other than that, I mean, we haven't played much in the last week. How's your week been?
Oh, my week has been awesome. I've gotten to experience a lot of different shifts in the way Overwatch is actually playing with the match system. I don't know if anybody else has had this issue, but right now you notice very obviously that they're playing with timeouts. You'll if you watch carefully, at least those of us who are experiencing it, will see that if you sit your character, you don't select your character right away. You'll actually get a little warning in chats, little subtle red warning saying you're going to get disconnected. And then if you don't click within like 10 seconds, boom, you're gone. And in some cases, there's been bugs where some of us have been logged out, rejoining matches and getting penalized. By the way, I've done the count. It's 7 rounds that you're penalized, 50% of your XP. So be careful with that. Ooh. Don't hit that. As you guys were saying, Route 66, I love it mostly because I call it my fire and ice map. Of course, I like to play a lot of Mei, so I get to kind of tease that saying while I'm on there. Other than that, it's been fun.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I know that the servers have been a little squirrely this week. One Eye and I have been playing, and just randomly I'll get dropped, or randomly like we'll get dropped out of a match after it ended, and then we'll reconnect right back into the end of the match, and it'll finish. And it's like, what's going on? In fact, one of the streams, I think on, what was it, Tuesday, we were playing Overwatch, and we actually ended up having to switch to Heroes of the Storm because I couldn't get back in. And it's like, all right, but it's a beta. It's to be expected. They're getting ready. It's right around the corner. Open beta is about a month away for people who pre-ordered now between now and April 29th. So get your pre-order in, and in a month we'll be seeing you in the game for that open beta. But yeah, it definitely was an interesting week. A lot more Route 66, One Eye and I got to see. And in the community, it was kind of a slow week as far as news went, but there were some other controversies that got drummed up, and we'll go over those a little bit, just because it's always fun to talk about butts. But
it is so ridiculous. I am so excited to get into it. It's one of those things where, like, on paper it just sounds like a joke, and then like you get into the meat of it, you just kind of like, oh my god, this is a thing. Like, so it's gonna be fun to bring up.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll go ahead and we'll open up the podcast. All of us, we kind of follow the competitive scene to varying degrees. I know Tifa is rabid competitive, and One Eye and I are pretty into the competitive scene. Konshu is a big Team Envious fan, so he follows along, and he's kind of a big statistics and meta guy, so he likes to follow along and see how things work, especially with May now joining the ranks of the competitive play meta, so he's really happy about that. But I mean, it was another weekend of IDDQD showing up and dominating. However, there was a change at the top of the NA for Gosu Weekly. On the EU side, IDDQD, no losses again. I mean, when are we going to be able to call them something that flows a little bit better? Like, I always feel like I'm afraid I'm going to miss a letter, or add an extra letter, and then it'll just become something totally like people are like, what? But they didn't lose again. Like, what?
Not
what
really
is-
surprising.
Like, what's going on with this team? They just show up and they're like, hey, this is our tournament. You guys can play us if you want, but
Monsters, dude.
it's ours.
Absolute monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't catch
I'm
many of
actually,
those.
Super surprised that IDDQD. See, it's hard for me to say even, but I'm surprised that team hasn't been picked up yet. And there's like Cloud9 now. There's Luminosity. They picked up Mix Up, right?
Mhm.
And there's Envious, but IDDQD, they're so dominant, but haven't been signed yet. It's crazy.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they're holding out. Like, literally, the only reason in my mind that a team could, like, I mean, it's their game. Like, they are unchained beasts at it. Like, they're pretty much unrivaled at this point. Like, they have to just be holding out. You know what I mean? Like, they're just waiting for the one offer that they're like, okay, we can agree to these terms, because there's no way that they pass up big organizations. You know what I mean? Like, they're waiting for a number. That has to be the case.
Yeah.
See, I've speculated on either they're waiting for that magical number, which has got to be pretty impressive, or, and this is purely speculative on my part, is maybe they're in the process of building an actual franchise and they need to get all the business aspects out of the way and maybe become their own entity. And that would be really cool to see. I mean, it's still really out there, but it seems like they just haven't paid. So many people could just grab them right now. It seems like it would be so easy to take them. And nobody has. And I'm sure there's some people out there who could easily drop some money and make it a thing. So either that number is really impressive, or maybe there's a business venture in there somewhere hiding in the background.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes sense, and you see it a lot of the times. I mean, TSM started out that way. CLG was the same way. Tempo Storm with Raynad just started Tempo Storm, and now like it's this huge force in Heroes. Like there's a big, Hearthstone team. I mean, they got Rocket League. Like, I mean, they're forming out. 2ARC is the same way. Granted, they were there before, and then they picked up teams. They kind of did it backwards. But I mean, you see this grassroots movement. A lot of the times, titles will start on the competitive scene, and you'll just see this team do really well, and they're like, no, we want to be our own bosses. And they'll just kind of form something out of something, and they'll pick up a sponsorship from this company and a sponsorship from that company, and sponsored by Coke Zero, and then they'll just start throwing this out, and they're like, well, what do we want to call ourselves? And boom, now you got yourselves a new team, and you got yourselves 5 owners or 6 owners or however many, and it just goes from there. So that's a very real possibility. I mean, it's happened before. It could happen again, but nonetheless, they are the top European team, probably top 2 or 3 in the world, and there's nothing that you can say to dispute that, because there's results. Like even like the last 2 weeks,
Their numbers, man.
they don't lose. Like, what the crap? But yeah. And then on the NA side, there was no Envious this week. However, Cloud9, number one NA, they won this week. So GG to them, my favorite team. And I caught a few more of those matches than I did on the European side. I mean, it was more of the same. You kind of see the same couple of comp setups, but it was a little bit different than it was the previous weekend because of some balance changes that happened over the last couple of weeks. Did you guys catch any of those matches? I mean, what are your thoughts on what you saw, if you did?
I didn't get to catch any of them. This past weekend ended up being kind of busy for me. I mean, just with everything going on with the weather and all that. So I was pretty booked solid. I haven't gotten a chance to watch VODs either, just because I've been editing. So
Yeah, I got you. Tifa, you're normally really, really big into that. Were you you scrimming, doing other stuff, or were you able to catch any of the matches?
Yeah, I actually didn't get to see many. One thing that I thought was interesting though was I forgot what team he was on, but there's actually a player, McCree player called IDDQD, like that was his name. And then it would get really confusing because then the casters basically followed him around because he was the best player on that team.
Mhm.
And then they'd say blah 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 IDDQD, and then it got really confusing because I think IDDQD was playing the same tournament, so it was like a little crazy. But yeah, I didn't see much about the meta, but the interesting thing that did happen was that basically the comp that has been dominating for the past like 2 to 3 weeks, basically the double orb with 2 Zenyatas and then 2 flankers, it's pretty much gone now with that one huge change that they did to Zenyatta's orbs, which is basically after 3 seconds of being out of line of sight, then the orbs disappear.
Yeah.
A huge change. Yeah, but I think that Zenyatta is still in a good place because he was still played a good like 30 to 40%, which is a lot more than some heroes still, and he can still do a lot. It's just that for that particular comp, it's just not as powerful anymore, which is good, I think, in my opinion.
the comp kind of needed a nerf. It's difficult to play around because the issue with the way that it functioned was since these flankers are always buffs, Zenyatta's just dropping Discord on whoever they're focusing, and I mean people are dropping regardless of their tank, support, defense, anything. So without that sort of unchained aggression that you really have no counterplay to because like they're designed to flank, it's hard to kind of lock down a Reaper, it's hard to lock down a Genji, so it's probably overall healthy for the meta. And I mean, he's still a strong hero. He still stands on his own. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know, Konshu. What are your thoughts on that? The orb change. I mean, we all speculated last week with on the show that it was going to have an adverse effect on the competitive scene. We just wanted to take a wait and see approach. I mean, you pretty much saw Lucio Zenyatta or double Zenyatta, double orb comp in 85% of the matches, and now it's like, well, that doesn't fly anymore. I mean, what do you expect to see going forward with that single change?
It's kind of a hard call because when I was sitting there waiting and seeing, I was like, wow, it's going to be really hard, especially up hallways, to chase somebody down and not put Zenyatta in a huge threat circle for anything that can hit him, especially if you're in a hallway and he's not being blocked, he's going to instantly die. Well, not instantly, but pretty quickly get whittled down and die. So now that the competitors are playing it, I still see them playing mostly the same way. It's just not the dual setup. So I think that there's just going to be another hero that's going to have to go in with them. So it's going to be a trio that's going to forward on top of you versus just that, here we got one major threat, then we've got kind of a support, and now we're going to have somebody else. I'm not sure if it's going to be more of a harassment role or what, but I think it's still pretty new and everybody's still trying to feel out how to really adjust to that move.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I'm really curious, and hopefully I'll be able to have time to watch more of the matches this weekend, because last weekend, I don't know what it was, whether it was the weather or what it was, but One Eye and I was also really, busy, and I'm not quite sure why, but all of a sudden I just got slammed with stuff. But hopefully I'll be able to catch some matches, and we all will, and just see how teams adapt to that, having an extra week of scrims to kind of figure out and see what comps are going to work. What are you going to do? Are you still going to use Zenyatta? Will you just have to kind of glue him to the back of a Genji or glue him to the back of anybody else that you're going to run that orb comp? Or are you going to have to use Mercy more and just kind of rely on somebody being better with their pistol placement and being more offensive? Because Zenyatta does bring some offense to the table. I mean, you have to be good at aiming. He brings more than the orbs. However, that's really where he shines, is being able to place those double orbs with 2 Zenyatas. But it obviously didn't stop IDDQD from dominating again. And Cloud9 luckily were able to win and make me seem like less of a joker about being such a huge fanboy. But Yeah, so Luminosity, the biggest pickup, they used to be Mix-Up. You guys knew them as Mix-Up. Now they are Luminosity. They lost in the semis in both EU and NA this week. So, I mean, they're still showing that they're competitive. They were competitive as Mix-Up. They're competitive as Luminosity. But they need to find that one thing to take them over that hump to kind of challenge as top 2 or top 3 every week. But they're there. I mean, it's only a matter of time until I think we'll see them in more finals, because they definitely have the roster. So, again, Luminosity used to be Mix-Up. IDDQD used to be, well, they're still IDDQD. They will be IDDQD until they're not.
I'm sure in a few weeks we'll finally be able to say otherwise. I mean, come on, it's got to be getting close.
It's got to be
sitting there with a checkbook at this point. Come on.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it was a pretty slow week for the competitive scene. You had a couple other events, and you had some minor events where some community teams. I didn't recognize a lot of the rosters, but hopefully they'll continue to play. That's what happened with Heroes. That's what happens with any game. You see some teams just rise out of the ashes, rise out of that scrum of the lower rung teams, and just kind of really start wrecking people. And obviously with the open beta a month away, and the official launch 7 weeks away, it's only a matter of time till the talent floodgates open. And in 2 months, 3 months, I can almost guarantee the competitive landscape will look 100% different. We'll probably have Team Husky dominating both NA and EU, and it's a matter of time. I'm sorry, it'll happen. But yeah, I mean that pretty much covers it for the competitive side this week. The big news this week, we're gonna go into the big news right now because Konshu is here, and we're gonna talk about his waifu. Anybody who watches Konshu, again, like I said, I stream Overwatch during the daytime. Konshu does it at nighttime. We're kind of buddy like that. He is a big May player, but his hashtag is hashtag Tracer Life. And this last week, there was something in the community that was dubbed hashtag Buttgate. Which is a good hashtag for the record. Yeah,
seriously.
I liked it.
Love the Buttgate.
I liked it.
Simple, to the point.
and it was somebody had raised a fuss over this one pose by Tracer, and unfortunately I didn't have time to pull it up. And for those of you who are listening, you can just go look it up. Just look up Tracer Buttgate pose or Tracer over the shoulder pose, and it was a picture. A pose of Tracer from the back, looking over her shoulder, and her assets were rather promiscuous in her skin tight uniform, and somebody had taken offense to it because they said this is very much not in the personality or the style of Tracer. This is out of character for her. She's innocent, she's young, she's youthful, she's joyful, she's happy. She's not seductive, and this is giving the wrong message. I don't think I like that. And the community came out and said, well, are you nuts? It's just a pose. And then some of the other community came out and said, you know what, you're right. It really doesn't fit her, it fit her personality very much. And then Blizzard came out and said, yeah, this has been kind of an internal discussion for a while. We agree. We're probably just going to remove it. So yeah, look for it to be removed. And it just created this huge thing about butts. I mean, you had people discussing everything from the amount of animals and animal characters in Overwatch to the angry monkey pose for Winston and how it's out of his character in a parody video, and Widowmaker. And I mean, it spiraled out of control. So you guys, I'm sure, followed along with a smile on your face as much as I did. What are your initial thoughts when you first heard about this?
Okay, so here's the thing. I think the timeline here is relatively important because what happened is the person who brought up the original argument, right? Their argument was Tracer is supposed to be one of the flagship characters for this game. She's so important. It completely undermines her character. I have a little daughter who's like 6 or some age like this who looks up to her, and now she thinks that every woman needs to be hypersexualized, even though the game's rated teen and not E, and all this stuff. And then the original post from Blizzard was like literally a paragraph that says, yeah, we're just going to take it out. And so people flipped out there because there wasn't really too much of an explanation. They were like, oh man, Blizzard's totally caving. This doesn't make any sense. All this stuff, yada, yada, yada. And then they expanded on it saying, we already have another post that we were going to put in anyways. We didn't like it that much. We thought it was kind of dull. Like, that's the main reason we're doing it is because we were kind of going to do it anyways, et cetera, et cetera. If you look at the victory poses for a lot of the Overwatch characters, I think it's 6 of them. Hanzo has one, Mercy, Widowmaker, Tracer, Symmetra. I want to say that there's one more too. I feel like there's one more, but it's kind of like a standard pose. The pose, for people who haven't seen it, she's literally just standing back facing the camera and looking over her left shoulder. Now, every character who does it in a slightly different way. Like Widowmaker, she's like tilting her visor up and looking back, things like that. And with Tracer, this whole argument that it's hypersexualized in my mind doesn't really hold water, because if you look at the pose, right, she's in like a mid-running stance. Like if you look, people who do track, like they stand in active stances with legs engaged and things like that. She's leaning on one leg with the other outstretched, and she's looking back. Like she's a fast character. She's running. It's not that surprising she would be ahead of you. She's not leaning over. She's not pushing out a butt. Like she's not doing anything sexual. So this entire argument kind of stems from the concept that she's in an outfit that accentuates her figure, and that's what turns her into a sexual object. And like my significant other has done a ton of women's rights studies and has taken all these college classes and all that jazz, and like we had a really long conversation about it, and the reason it irks her is because in her mind it just objectifies women. It's the same argument as like, well, look at the outfit she was wearing, she was begging for it, because nothing about the pose, nothing about her character is objectually sexualized. You know what I mean? Like it's just her standing there looking over her shoulder. So I feel bad because I can understand how somebody would be like, oh, look at how sexual it is, you're staring at her butt, but there's nothing inherently sexual about it in my mind. So I feel like it undermines the concept. I feel like it does more damage than it does good, if that makes sense.
I mean, there's definitely worse offenders out there in the gaming industry than Tracer's.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because it's not. It would be a little bit different if, say, she was like, if she was leaning forward or something like that. It would be different, but it's not. She's literally standing there like mid-gate, just looking back. You know what I mean? Like, and for the record, the other characters who do it, none of them are really sexualized either. The most you could argue would be Widowmaker, because she's kind of like leaning with her hip out, but even there, she's leaning. Like, there's nothing inherently sexual about leaning. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that in my mind just blows me away about this entire argument. That's what makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from a female perspective, I can understand why people would like think that way about like, oh, it's like objectification, blah, blah, blah. Personally, it doesn't bother me. And I just find it funny that people have came out with tons and tons of parodies, like wall to wall. All I see on Reddit, they actually made a filter on the Overwatch subreddit to filter out any buttgate content. So it got that bad. But yeah, personally, I don't mind it. But at the same time, I can understand why Blizzard made the decision that they did, and I don't think that it was a bad decision. But yeah, either way, I don't really care.
So from my perspective, I have a couple of things to hit, because it was one of those things that I stopped for a moment and I had to open up the game, because it was like, really? So I opened up the game and I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah. So for me, I tell a lot of people on my stream, I'm like, I look at the character and I go, who actually uses this pose? I look around, everybody uses the sit down pose. So that the fact that it became like a topic was like, oh, who uses this pose? So I look at it and I'm spinning it around and I'm like, okay, Tracer doesn't really have much of a butt. The fact that it became Buttgate is a pure miracle for Tracer, because she doesn't really have much of a butt to show off to begin with. But it literally would take the rigging team or the animation team a 90-degree turn. And if you look at it, a 90-degree turn where you're looking straight up her leg, it looks like what they intended. I think it's just because of the over-rotation. It's from behind. It gave maybe some people the wrong perception. That's just one piece, though. That was like, okay, this could be really easy fixed, misconception on some people's part. But then I go back and I look at some of the conversation. The conversation is gold. I had literally hours of too much fun in Reddit and all over the forums, just seeing people's opinions. One, I see a lot of women say that it's objectifying and it's bringing back the times, rolling back time on women's rights. And I'm like, first of all, let's bring it back to the core, right? These are heroes. My heroes and heroes of generations, whether it be DC Comics or Marvel, have always shown very, very powerful, strong women. While not necessarily as many as the men, I will give them that. They were way more scantily clad than Tracer could ever possibly show off in the entire game, and still were very big role models as for growing up. They were very strong characters. Now, this one, who, I mean, we can speculate whether or not she needs to be wearing spandex is kind of pointless. Tracer's signature, in my opinion, as a male, Tracer's signature, we'll call it objectification just for the sake of it, is her face. She's got that girl next door, cute girl look. That everybody, when they think of Tracer, is 90% of the photos. You look at all the photos and where the focus of the frame is, most of the time it's her face. It's the upper 2/3 of her body. You can't say it's focusing on her breast because she's got that giant thing in the middle. I mean, it really is almost always pointed at her face. So when people were fighting over that, I'm like, you're going to have a really hard argument to call that. Now, me personally, I looked at it and was like, is this really a thing? They need to do that. And then I started looking at other characters, and I made a joke, and we'll get to this topic a little bit more later, but Winston and his angry look, does that mean XYZ? Like all animals are inherently angry? Should we put down every gorilla out there because they'll get angry, right? I mean, you can expand this so far, and it was just great to see. I think the best thing that could have happened was what did happen, and that was the parodies that came out of it. That it wasn't taken as such a massive buttgate issue, but more of, look at how much we can make fun of this issue. And I think that calmed it down a little bit. I think it really was the gap in time between when they made their first announcement, and I think we timed it down. It was like 9 hours later that they made their official announcement. That 9-hour window was pure chaos for the scene. And I think that was both the beautiful harmony and pure chaos of the community that we saw come together. And what I learned from the community that one moment was almost everybody has a sense of humor in the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it...
Yeah, definitely. I saw one parody where a guy shot a video where he walks in on his girlfriend, like, admiring Reinhardt. And then he's like, oh my god.
He's like, not doing anything. I'm not doing anything.
This is not what it looks like.
Yeah.
And she was just saying, like, oh my gosh, Reinhardt's muscles are so big. They're so large. And it was just like, it was just just watching that was so ridiculous. And it kind of put into perspective for some people, I bet, like, how ridiculous, how blown up, Buttk is. But, yeah, it was, like, great parodies like that. Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have Total Biscuit's video where he's talking about, the strong animal presence of Winston and also Winston, and how he's this blue-gray and he's strong and he's friendly. And then, of course, you have this pose, right? And it's his beast victory pose. And he's red and his yellow eyes are glowing and they're void of any type of soul. And it's like, this is obviously doesn't belong in the game, and I myself have used it because I feel like it really objectifies him and makes him look stronger, like he's unbridled, and it just all the amount of parody videos that came out of, well, this offended one person, and she really didn't want, or they really didn't want their daughter to see this, and everyone's like, what the crap, seriously? And then Blizzard goes, yeah, we're gonna take it out, and they go, what the crap, seriously? Like, are you kidding? Like, this is a big enough deal for you to be like, yeah, we agree, we're taking it out, and then have all the just hubbub blow up over a butt, and it's like, yeah, we get it. It's a butt. It doesn't really fit with Tracer, and Hanzo has a butt pose, and Mercy's got a butt pose, and Widowmaker's they all have the over-the-shoulder pose. Even Symmetra kind of has that pose, and I know that One Eye, that's like one of his favorite Symmetra poses, where she's.
Oh yeah, I even said, I'm like, look at that butt, the Symmetra butt. Like, it builds turrets. It's good stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, you had all this hubbub that came out of this minor little issue that really, if you think about it, you're like, well, yes, she's she has the right to have that issue. You know, her daughter doesn't want to objectify women. You know, it doesn't really fit the whole Tracer character. But seriously, it's a video game. Like, we've been having this discussion for years about, you know, the objectification of women and how women are always, you know, viewed and typecast as tropes, and the men's are always saving them, and they're these giant masculine guys, and the women are always you know, small waist and big breasted, and, you know, let's get some real women characters. And then of course you have Zarya that gets put in the game, who's a Russian bodybuilder. And in my comments when I'm
Love
streaming,
Zarya.
yeah,
Oh my god! Dude, the flexing victory pose like she's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And the emote. You can ask Beartech. My favorite emote spam in the game is Zarya because I have the "I want to hug you like big Siberian bear" just nonstop. It's the best. I love it so much.
And there's quite a bit of banter in my stream chat when I'm streaming, and also, you know, you've seen it kind of around. It's not a huge deal, but Zarya, she's a big girl. She's a bodybuilder, you know, like she's jacked, and people have said, man, that chick is jacked, and it's like, yeah, she is. But then someone else is like, do we really need a woman that looks like a man? It's like, what the hell do you want? Like, what do you want this like fat beer-gutted woman? Because then you're gonna be like, do we really need to look like a deadbeat? It's like, it's a video game. Like, let's just pretend for a minute that we can enjoy a video game, and you're not going to see that pose 98% of the time. You know, there are much cuter poses because everyone plays Tracer, and she's got her giggle and, you know, her accent and her high-pitched voice, and you're like, she's fun-loving, she's bubbly, she's carefree. I'm not going to do the over-the-shoulder pose. But if I want to, because I want to have this, like, serious... To me, it looks like she's almost looking back over her shoulder like she just teleported in front of you, and she's like, are you coming or what? Like, we got some work to do. You know, it looks serious to me. It doesn't look sexual, but then again, you know, I am but a man. So I think
the big issue here, like, really the issue is that it's somebody whose heart's in the right place, but just really putting the energy in the wrong area. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm somebody who plays a lot of MOBAs. If we want to talk about, like, the objectification of women, like, that genre gets flamed nonstop about how the female characters are designed. And in some respects, I think that there is an argument to be made there. I don't necessarily think that's the case in some specific games, but I could see it. And when I, like, actually looked at the pose, when I loaded in game to look at the pose, I was like, whoa, she is literally just standing there, guys. Like, is this what the hubbub is actually about? And then the other thing, too, is I think part of the reason people got so mad is because they saw it as Blizzard just bending to people getting mad over something. And, like, if you read the original post, that's absolutely how it comes off. It's literally one paragraph that finishes with, like, we're going to try and do better. And then Jeff Kaplan just had to write a whole page afterwards being like, no, we were going to change it anyways. It's kind of just motivation for us to do it. Like, we have better poses. It's pretty generic. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily think Blizzard's trying to backpedal. Like, if you read the post, it makes sense. Like, there's a lot of Blizzard polish that goes in all the time. Like, patches constantly, we find poses they change, new emotes, you know, things like that. Like, they do it a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not that strange that they might have something planned for Tracer anyways. It's just it sets a bad precedent with how it was originally replied to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because of the way everybody handled it, it just looked like another case of people being oversensitive and knee-jerk reactions and things like that. And it's a little scary to see, but I think the big thing to remember is everybody is just misunderstanding everything and blowing it way out of proportion from every side. Like, there's nothing sexual about this dance in any way, shape, or form, so I don't know why people are upset about it. And there's nothing wrong with Blizzard wanting to change something in their game unless it's just them being weak-willed, which it doesn't seem like that's the case. So, yeah. I don't know. The whole thing just seems so silly.
It seems also that it stems from a lot larger conversation. That is a good conversation to be had, but sometimes it's mismanaged. At the end of the day, somebody drew this character, somebody modeled this character, somebody had their heart and soul for at least a couple days poured into how they wanted this character to look. And the bigger argument at hand was artistic freedom. There's tons of conversations. We're not going to go into that here, but somebody made this character and made it look the way it is and rigged it and modeled it and animated it this way. Somebody at some point said, this is good. Now, whether they had additional ideas that came along, that's fine. And the biggest thing that I saw that I just wanted to strangle everybody with is, remember, this game is in beta, not necessarily for this purpose, but they have the freedom, the artistic freedom to change anything at any given time. Now, we may come in... Yeah, and they do constantly on us. Like voice changes, like random. I'm like, whoa, that's a different voice actor. You know, those things are the point of alpha, and I think the vision of what people become attached to and getting access to view that stuff and be able to play that stuff is they get sucked into loving that specific aspect, pun intended, of a character, and it's really poorly founded because we're still in beta. Any aspect of this game can change at this point in time.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, but it can.
Well, and somebody on Twitter that I know from the Blizzard community also made the point of cigarettes and guns are worse than butts. Like, what's the big deal? You were gonna say something, Tifa.
The one thing that I do hope does not happen coming out of Buttgate is I really hope that Jeff Kaplan isn't afraid to still talk to us so openly, because he's been great with all his blue posts and being really open and being very quick to he'll say the change is coming and next week boom, patch notes, and I don't know, he's been really great with the community and just being very transparent, and I just hope that there's not a backlash for Buttgate where he's oh, I have to be careful about what I say or what I comment on now because of that incident. So hopefully he'll still, moving forward, he'll still really want to be open with us. So I don't want that to end up in a censorship of the director.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, and Overwatch has had nothing but positives. I mean, everything they've added has been positive. Even a lot of the stuff they've subtracted has been positive. I mean, it's kind of debatable what they did with Lucio and Genji with that 150 health pool. A lot of people said, well, they took away too much, and a lot of people said, I don't really feel it. But everything else, it's been positive. And even the fact that they're yeah, we'll take it out. It's one pose. I mean, you've got 685 other poses to choose from. I mean, and you're going to have more. They're going to add more. I mean, they add more every patch. It's just a foregone conclusion. You will have options. I'll never use the
and
pose.
Before the replacement pose is twerking Tracer. That's what they added.
Yes.
Here it comes, baby. Here's the real controversy.
Yeah, you want to talk about a controversial April Fool's? They should have posted that on the main page.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, but I mean, it's a topic that hopefully will die out quickly and probably has already kind of run its course, and people can just focus on the gameplay and get hyped for the game coming out very soon. The other big thing is they're hinting at another animated short. And for those of you who follow Overwatch and kind of watch closely, the last one was focused around Winston, and it kind of centered around him debating whether or not he was going to recall the Overwatch Initiative because there was a crisis, and Reaper, who is a member of Talon, and those of you who watch my stream know that I love playing Reaper, came in and broke into the facility. And of course the Reddit detectives and the internet investigators immediately pounced on that and started just weaning out, and we found at least 4 or 5 characters that had different letters and the little screen that popped up when they were running through all the faces of the Overwatch Initiative. And they're like, well, those have different letters, and the avatars are a little bit more fleshed out. Upcoming characters confirmed, potentially, ? And everybody loved it. And it kind of spawned a little baby Winston plushie that's going to get sold by Blizzard kind of as a part of that. And it just was really well put together. Well, this upcoming one is entitled Alive, and it stars Widowmaker, One Eye and Eye's favorite character, and she's working for Talon, the same organization that Reaper was working for, and it's kind of centers around her story. For those of us who have been following the lore, Widowmaker wasn't always blue, or purple, I guess, purple. She wasn't always cold-hearted. She wasn't always a ruthless assassin. She got brought into this Deadeye sort of program and got genetically modified to be this just heartless killing machine. And so it's going to kind of center around her. And from what we saw, it starts out with her on a mission in Kings Row, one of the maps. and essentially the tagline is, you will discover how one death can change everything. And for I mean, we know that her husband had died, which kind of it pushed her into joining Talon, becoming Widowmaker. But does it mean that one? Does it mean something else? Is it going to kind of back from that mission in King's Row? Is it going to end with that mission? I don't know. But that's coming up soon. I'm sure you guys are excited to see exactly what is going to come out of that. Is it more spoilers, more Easter eggs? Is it just more lore? Because I'm a big lore junkie. I love it. So, I mean, what do you guys expect to see from that?
Honestly, no idea. I had no bets when it came to Recall, and watching it and being like, oh, cool, Reaper. Ah, sweet, Tracer on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm ready for anything at this point. I'm also ready to see how faithful they are to the actual map. Because, once again, Watchpoint Gibraltar with Recall, I mean, it's the exact same thing. Like, it's so much fun to see. So hopefully they're going to do some of that. And the best part's going to be all the community Easter egg hunting. I'm sure we're going to find even more juicy tidbits hidden in that video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it because I find Widowmaker's lore super interesting. Like she murders her husband, whom she loves, after being brainwashed by Talon, right? And it's just like there's just so many questions, and it's just one line in the lore. It says like something like the next day, Widowmaker murders him in his sleep, and there's like zero explanation or follow up after that. So I just want to, and I really wonder who is she gonna kill in that in Alive. Who is that one shot, one kill person?
Yeah, I have no idea. Konshu, I mean, you're just as big of a nerd as we are. I mean, what do you expect to see from this?
Honestly, the inner fan wants to blurt out, "Oh my God, Tracer! Something's gonna happen," because they say King's Row. Like anytime that they even slightly glimmer at anything that involves Tracer, I've got a big idea of what should be there. Now, I don't believe actually Tracer will make a debut. I'd love them to kind of hint at some of that fandom that's outlying out there. Everybody knows about the fandom between Widowmaker and Tracer, not necessarily that fandom, but other types of fanfic stories. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, One Eye.
Yeah, I giggled. We all know.
But,
we're adults. We know what a ship looks like. Come on now.
Now, I'm really curious because Widowmaker has been one of those ones that I've been like, there's got to be some dark secret. And they seem to twine so well the characters just around each other that I feel like they're doing it in a stage where, okay, we got Winston, we hear Tracer, King's Row, Widowmaker. The next natural phase in my mind is like they're going to either tell Tracer stories next, and they have to kind of like intertwine those. And then there's the third person. So I'm curious, is that third person related to Tracer, or is it somebody else? Who is that third person that's in that scene in my mind? And there's obviously tons of hype and a million questions that are going through my head. But I'm just excited. I know that my whole life will stop as soon as they announce that video published.
Yeah, for sure. Family just came home, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and it'll also be interesting to see how many more they have planned. You got 21 playable characters right now, with another 5 potential from that first animated short. Are they going to tease another map? We don't know, but you're going to get to kind of see some more backstory behind Widowmaker, and she's kind of one of the more mysterious characters, so it'll be really interesting to see. But that should be coming out very, very soon. Very, very soon. I know PlayStation.com said the 13th of April. I think it was actually a mistype. It might be around that time. It might be sooner. Hopefully it's sooner. I want to see it sooner. But yeah, so guys, look for that to drop. The subreddit on the Overwatch subreddit on Reddit, the BattleNet forums, just comb. Even Google. Google's your best friend. I love Google. So there are also some other blue posts this week. They're talking about adding some ways to have black borders to be added around crosshairs, to add RGB sliders eventually. They're going to add crosshair customization. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's not huge, but some people really like that stuff. And so you'll kind of have, a different crosshairs, different colors. They might even be able to add different graphics based on what character you're playing, and just it's something to unlock, maybe even through an achievement. You never even know. Something very minor that you guys might have thoughts on, but I think it's kind of a cool idea.
I like crosshair customization. I forget which was the first game I ever saw it in. I want to say maybe a Halo. I wouldn't be too surprised if I was wrong. But it's kind of nice. Like, I'm colorblind, but I'm this very strange kind of colorblind where I don't really see shades and hues. I see, like, really basic block colors. And it's kind of a nice feature because sometimes you don't really think about it like, oh, this white might not show up. I might not see it, things like that. So it's just a nice little feature. It gives players control, and it's kind of fun, So I'm behind it. It's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Always down for more polish.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then the other thing is Overwatch on console will not have split screen. So it will be very interesting to see what they do with that. For local multiplayer, if they add some sort of co-op missions, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, and the caveat to that is, for me, I really want to see what they're going to do with consoles in terms of the competitive scene. If they're going to keep it on PC, there has kind of been some whispers about, oh crap, they better not move it to consoles. PC Master Race, blah blah blah. Stay true, Blizzard. But the consoles will not have split screen.
One interesting thing actually that came up this week also was Jeff had an interview with a YouTuber called the Jez or something, but he said in the interview that the console and the PC will be balanced differently. So that's a good relief for I think a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's definitely, and then that interaction between Jeff and just a YouTuber in the community, it shows that they do value, again, reiterating what I say every week, they do value our opinion, but we'll see what the future holds with that. The other thing that I'm really interested about is that control maps, the points will be scrambled. They are coming. That way, it's not point A, point B, point C, point A, point B. It'll be scrambled up, so you won't really know what to expect. It'll be random at times. So it'll be interesting. I think that's a good move. Another little change that'll kind of add some randomness to the game so that people don't get locked into the same comps. Because I know I do the same thing. I get locked into the same comp. I know one eye at times it's like, oh, we're on Nepal on this control point.
Oh yeah, lots of Winston.
Yeah.
Lots of Winston on control points.
I think it's amazing because I don't know about you guys, but the strat most of the time is if you see that ticker get to that last third stretch, you're already thinking in your mind, okay, it's going to drop back to here. I'm going to break out this character. I'm going to pre-set up so I can gun them down before they get to the next point. Or Hanamura, everybody will be like, okay, let's just abandon that point and fall back to the second one and siege hard. People instantly do that, and it kind of almost, it's like, but if we just stay here, we could have point A. I think it's going to break that habit of just saying, "Oh, let it go. We can re-siege over here. We can just, fall back to safety, if you will, instead of fighting the good fight, by the hair of your knuckles, if you will."
Yeah, and that's it'll be really nice because I see it a lot. One eye and I mean, we both see it a lot where you just kind of give up on a point. And Hanamura is a perfect example. I hate defending that first point. I mean, if they get through, if your team isn't on the same page and you don't have a really good setup to kind of stop them from getting through those doors, or they find a way to get around it, I really don't like that first point. It's a lot easier to defend the second point, and people are very quick to give up on them. And so scrambling it up, and then on the other maps, the King of the Hill type maps as well, scrambling up those points will be really nice, especially when you're on Lijiang Tower and you expect A, B, C, and C is the server room. Well, C might end up being A. You never know. Like it'll be kind of that WTF moment where you spawn in and you're like, oh well, I'm used to playing this character, but I guess I'll try something different. And then the next spawn point, or the next point on the second, second round is something different. You're like, well, my mind is it's hardwired. I have to play this character, but I had some success with this other character, so maybe I'll try something different. I don't know. It might have some effect on games. It might just still force people to stay locked into their certain characters and their certain roles. You never know. But They also
It'll be hard to get me to stop playing Torb on defense.
That's true.
That is true.
That's true. Yeah, balanced character right there. Love him.
Yeah, I love him. High impact, high gameplay.
Best plays of the game. Tell you what, man, hammers with a purpose. But they also
No, the dead Torby with just the turret going. That's my favorite.
and you know what? To go off on a little bit of a tangent, I did see a video a few weeks back. Someone posted on Reddit, and it was like, the best play of the game, and it was on Hanamura, and Torbjorn died, and the play of the game was him rolling off the map while his turret picked up a triple kill, and that was the play of the game. Like, you watch Torbjorn fall off a ledge and die while his turret's getting kills, and you're like, yeah, that's not broken. Like, what the hell was that? Like, okay. But, yeah, so obviously people like One Eye, and even like myself, we might still get locked into those same characters. But it does add kind of a sense of randomness and kind of a freshness to matches, so you don't expect the same thing. As soon as you see, now playing Lijiang Tower, ABC, it might be CAB. You never know. That randomness could be a good thing. I think it'll be a good thing. But they also did say that they're adding 2 more legendary skins for Lucio. 2 more legendary skins for Lucio. So
Give
something.
Fonzo one already. Come on now.
He doesn't need one. Lucio needs all the skins. Lucio and Reaper. That's it. No. Diva.
The legendary myth of Genji getting legendary.
Oh, he's got his banana. He's got his banana tint. He's fine. He's got his. They had a discussion on Reddit about Malachite and how Malachite isn't actually the color of what his skin tint is, and they need to change it because it's more of, this. Like, if they had changed it to this name, it would. And I'm like, this is really a discussion, but okay, I'll jump in. So I joined in, and I'm like, oh, Malachite. Blizzard's always had a problem with the color Malachite. Haha, Kappa. Like, but I don't know. 2 more legendary skins for Lucio. It's not the end. There will be more skins for other characters. But the Space Frog creeps a lot of people out. I think it's awesome. So we'll see what they have in the tube. And then on the topic of plays of the games and kill feeds, Jeff Kaplan did say they're going to be adding Mercy Reses to kill feeds as well.
Which he really needs more credit for. Like, I know if people watching aren't necessarily people who have played the game, it might not seem like one of the most powerful ultimates in the game.
Yeah.
But Mercy, they decide who wins, in all honesty. Like, a well-timed Mercy Res can completely stop a push in his tracks, like, no matter what. And so the fact that you don't see more plays of the game, the fact that it doesn't show up on the feed, it doesn't feel as valuable as it actually is.
Actually, I had a play of the game this week. I was playing Mercy on Temple of Nuvis, and then we were doing a big push. It was like overtime, and then I just went, the little crevice behind the control point where it's like 2 doors.
Yeah.
So I went in there as Mercy and just hid, and the other team was using all their ults, so I just hid and waited. And then after all the ults were gone, I had a 4-person res, and that ended up being play of the game. So that was very rewarding. I definitely like the new algorithm they have for play of the games. It is a little weird sometimes because sometimes they'll have a random 2-person Mercy res where at a point that didn't really matter, I guess. So I guess it needs some tweaking, but having to play the game for a play like that was really nice.
See, I've yet to see a Mercy Res. I've seen a few good sharpshooter ones, like some good Hanzo plays and things like that, but I've yet to see the Mercy Res as play the game. And, chat's saying that they're seeing it more, I just hope to do it. And I just like that they're giving supports more credit, like they need it. Don't get me wrong, I love my giant pile of Symmetra primary fire play of the games, but let's see some other supports get some love. It's a nice touch.
Yeah. Yeah, and the algorithm is definitely allowing me to get more plays of the game with One Eye in games with me, so that's always a good thing.
Not stealing them all because I just played Torb and Symmetra.
Torb, Symmetra, and Winston, yeah. You did have that one where you threw 3 people off the ledge on...
on Ilios?
Yeah,
that was great. I pat myself on the back for that one. Just to describe it real quick, since I imagine nobody really saw it, what happened was we were on the first point of Ilios, and we were capturing it. It might have even been overtime, but Mercy got a 3-person res, right? And that 3-person res just turned me into Primal Rage, and I just knocked them straight off after getting res. All 3 of them, just straight into the face.
Yep.
It was so good, and that ended up being play of the game, and chat was very salty about it. It was good.
And
made me feel strong.
I think somebody in chat, Watch Out Jackie, was in that game with us too. So she remembers. She says, she says that was funny. Yeah, it was. That was a good play of the game. But so Mercy Reses will be added to kill feeds, and then we had our first full week of weekly brawls. Granted, like they said during the beta, the weekly brawls, quote unquote, are actually going to be daily, and they're going to reset daily because they're really trying to see. They're getting as many out, fleshed out as they can to try and see what works well, what doesn't work well. Cough, McCree only headshots, but there was a lot of them. That McCree only headshots, it did, and I think Konshu was the one. He said it felt like a bunch of stormtroopers just shooting at each other. Like you really didn't hit, like unless you got a headshot. There was one game where we were in overtime twice for a grand total of 20 minutes because 6 McCrees on Route 66 trying to kill each other to push each other off the payload to push it forward or push the attacking team off the payload to push it back. The only damage you do is headshots. I don't aim for the head. I aim for the body when I'm firing just because it's the biggest mass, and then if they duck, I hit the head. If they turn, I can still hit the body. I was dying on I'm like, come on, I can't hit anything. So I mean, I didn't like that brawl.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. Konshu, I know you had experience with it. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun.
I think people need to put into perspective that 20 minutes, though. That 20 minutes, 20 minutes, right? That's 3 matches in Overwatch time. That has
a huge amount of time.
The 20 minutes is like eternity. By that time, your hand is now sore. You're just at this point going, this game is no longer fun. You're now starting to ponder the idea of, maybe that 7, rounds of 50% might actually be worth it. It's a really long amount of time to have a game go when it goes from silly fun to, okay, this is dumb.
Yeah. That one I didn't enjoy. The next one after that, because they changed kind of midday, was all supports, and one eye was running errands for the McCree one. He jumped in for all supports. I think it was on Hanamura. We were playing. That game was a ton of fun. You got to see some supports getting showcased, but the stipulation was you could only have 2 supports, 2 unique supports. So you can only have 2 Lucios, 2 Zenyatas per team. So you couldn't go all 2 Symmetras. You couldn't have all Zenyatas. I mean, so that was fun for me since I play a lot of Lucio. I was able to play a little bit more offensively, and I spent the majority of my time outside the gates on that first point, just because it was so much fun. I mean, it's like a bunch of wiffle bats flying at each other, and occasionally you get stung by a bee. It's like that one, I think, was my favorite one this week so far. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that one.
It's the most fun I've had with one of them so far. I'm a big Symmetra player, and getting to play Hanamura and not having characters jump over the walls through the sniping windows, having you guys have to go through this gate. Nothing happened. We just stood there and body bagged people for 8 minutes. It was a blast. I had so much fun. You're just sitting there rolling out Symmetra bowling balls, just oh sweet, double kill, cool. Because nobody's really getting bursted down. Everyone's just getting whittled really slowly because they're getting healed constantly too. And then eventually just 2 people die, and you're just yes, best Symmetra ever. It was so satisfying. It was great.
Yeah.
Seeing a bunch of people barrel through 2 Symmetra setups, let's just rush the point. Everybody's dead. Get out. It was so much fun.
I think the biggest piece of that, and this is something we learned from the custom games, is that people became very, very comfortable with these characters. They typically would not play because they don't either know how to play it or just afraid that they're going to screw the team over by dying a couple times. When they realize what the character can do when everybody's at a standstill and they're just kind of whittling at each other, I think they become more confident and definitely more effective with these support characters. And I think after this brawl, we saw probably a little bit more people willing to go jump to the support class than before, when it's always, okay, who's going to play support this round? I think people are now getting more proactive with characters.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then there were some other weekly brawls. The one right after all supports was all tanks, and unfortunately we didn't get a chance to play that one. And then they had an arcade. There were a couple others this week. I don't know if there were some that stood out to you guys that you wanted to discuss, but I've really been having fun with the weekly brawl mode, and I think it was a really good addition to the game. Interested to see what future ones are that they're going to come out with. Was there any other ones that stood out to you guys that you wanted to touch on, or was that good?
There's one that was There's one that was called "Take to the Skies," and it was
yes.
Sarah of Mercy, and it was amazing. It was just like, if you're in the air, everyone was in the air, and it was just like everything flying around, and it just looked so cool. It looked so cool, and it was fun too. And I really liked that one. I only got to play it for a little bit, but that's like probably my favorite one, just because I love Mercy and Farrah combo.
I heard about that.
See, that's my only problem with this is like some of these game modes sound like so much fun and are so good, and just like you don't get a chance to play them because they're rotating them so fast. And like it makes sense, and we want Blizzard to play test more of it so that we get better game modes. It's just like some of them, man, like that would have been a blast to play. That would have been great.
I think my two favorites, like the one she just mentioned, was one exactly that I was just about to mention. I remember going there in Mercy, and I have never had so much fun just dancing in the sky, watching the Pharaoh struggle, and then finally hit you out of the sky, and then there'd be a Mercy res, and all the people went down, would go up again, and it just was this swarm of pure chaos. But I don't think there was a single person who wasn't just red in the face from laughing and just having fun. And just to kind of close out the overall feel of these brawls is where I first kind of thought of this is there was a group of us who played a lot together, and we made custom games. We do stupid, silly stuff like this. There would be 6 of us, and we'd all pick like all tracers, and then next time we'd all agree, okay, all mercies. And we did one match where it was all mercies. Now imagine 12 mercies. First of all, 12 mercies on a match in a custom game.
40-minute long.
we were barely hitting each other, but by the end of that round, I don't think there was not a single one of us who could not literally challenge a tank with a Mercy, because we got so good at accurately aiming with her. We got so good at just knowing how to protect her that I think that these literally what Blizzard has capitalized on is taking those fun, stupid little games and making them available so you're not locked into just 12 people. You're locked into whoever wants to come and join the chaos. And I think that was absolutely brilliant on their part.
Yeah, and it's just going to add so much more randomness. Like they did it with Hearthstone, and they're doing it with Overwatch, and it's so much fun. They even had one last week where it was, whenever you died, you spawned as another random character, and that also added because then there were graphical glitches at the end of the game, and we covered it last week when we were talking about it. But I mean, it's just these game modes that they come up with. Some of them you're like, oh God, can it be over yet? And some of them you're just like, that was fun, I want to play it again. Like, it was just a lot of fun, and it's definitely a positive addition to the game. And those of you who can't play yet, that you're waiting, for the open beta and for full release, you got a lot of fun in store for you. So, we'll keep bug testing these for you and make sure they're good. So. Just trust us, all right? Trust the space. It's gonna take care of you. But that pretty much covers everything. We are gonna do a deep dive though. It's been several weeks since we've done one, and this week because Azax is not here to read the lore and the abilities, he will be placed in the passenger seat of my car, and I will be taking this for a drive. So our deep dive, of course, like I said, is on Winston. Winston is a 29-year-old scientist and adventurer. His real name is Winston. He's named after the scientist that raised him. His base of operations is the Horizon Lunar Colony formerly. Currently, it's Gibraltar, and you see that a lot in the game. You see his armor, it's hanging up. You see it in the animated short he was in. And he's kind of the de facto leader of the Overwatch Initiative. He's the guy that's charged with collecting and keeping the data. He's the guy that's charged with recalling the Overwatch Initiative. He is a tank in the game. His primary ability is the Tesla cannon, and left mouse button click, and it just sends out a short range electric barrage for as long as he holds down the trigger. It is a reloadable. I think it has 100 ammo is his primary
It's 100
fire.
ammo, yeah.
Yeah, 100 ammo, and it shoots out arcing electricity. You don't really have to aim it. You just have to be in the vicinity of somebody, have them in your field of view, and it will connect with them. His shift is jump pack, and it is a launching jump assisted by his energy back. He lunges through the air and he deals significant damage and staggers nearby enemies when he lands. I like to use that to be more offensive. And it is on a decently long cooldown. It doesn't recharge very fast, so you kind of have to be careful about jumping in and then getting stranded. However, his E is Barrier Projector. His Barrier Projector extends a bubble-shaped field that absorbs damage until it's destroyed. Allies can jump into the barrier and they'll be protected and can return fire from the barrier. And then finally, his Q is Primal Rage, aka the Angry Monkey. And that is when he turns into a giant red ape. He embraces his animal nature. He significantly boosts his health and makes him very difficult to kill. He strengthens his melee attack. His primary fire is no longer his Tesla cannon. It is now essentially he's just wildly swinging at his enemies, and it knocks him back, and it allows him, as Tifa is demonstrating, and it allows him to use his jump pack much more frequently. While raging, he can only make melee and jump pack attacks. He cannot use his barrier projector, and like I said, he does not have his Tesla cannon. He's a very interesting character. I know I have a lot of experience playing him. I know One Eye has a lot of experience playing him. I know Konshu's played him some, and I know Tifa has also got some experience with him. Pretty much, what do you feel like his strengths and weaknesses are? Who does he work well with, and really where does he struggle in the game? Because he is a tank, he is meant to soak damage, but he is not without his weaknesses.
Wherever I'm at, he's weak. Typically, why I say that is because I do play a lot of Tracer, and hands down, a lot of people are always hesitant. Like, you're going to use Tracer, and I'm like, dude, they got a Winston. I mean. It doesn't seem like it would be an obvious one at first, but really the ability to zip around, it almost seems like Winston has like a negative effect where his turning and his awareness seems very clunky. It's almost kind of like D.Va. It's very large to move around. So that zipping around really confuses most players, and it gives you the extra quote-unquote opportunity to dance with him, back off, and you got all that opportunity to do that, as well as she's pretty much the only one that has the ability to quickly warp back after she's been hit once or twice by Winston and still survive. So she can sit inside his bubble versus most characters who have to just run up and then run away. So that's an advantage she has as well. So
I do want to mention that's a skill matchup, though, because the difference is if Tracer blows her cooldowns too fast, and if you catch her after rewinding, super easy to kill her with Winston. That's one of the reasons I really like him. Is his entire playstyle as opposed to most tanks. Like, say you look at Reinhardt, right? His entire kit is revolved around this concept of just being like an immovable object that shoves. You know what I mean? Or like Roadhog, who's entirely designed to just get picks, disrupt the game. Winston he's an offensive tank, and it's an interesting design. Because of the leap and the way that the Tesla gun interacts, it's incredibly easy, like, say Mercy sticking on somebody who's injured. It's so easy to just jump straight on her and maybe even get a double kill. Because the other thing that Veritech didn't mention about the lightning gun is while you have to keep them in vision in front of you, once it's like sparking to them, as long as they're still in that vision, it'll hit them. So say that you jump on a Mercy and you're shocking her, and so she jumps to her, behind the tank that's next to her, but you keep it going on her, it'll hit both of them. It'll hit all of the enemies that are like in the vision in front of you. So as far as like taking down squishies, it's what he's best at. It's why I play him so much in like maps like Nepal, like the single control points, is because in those maps you're there's not going to be a lot of front line. The front line's going to be literally just trying to push people off the point as opposed to protect their squishies who are moving the objective. So it's so easy to just be like, I'm going to get a double triple kill. Let's go for it, baby. I'm Mr. Blanket. Like, it's a blast. It's so easy. I love Winston. They don't call him Lewiston, you know?
Yeah, I could totally agree on that point. One example is like May. I'm always very aggressive with May, but there's one person that I will just say, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't, and that's definitely Winston. Because half the time, I can freeze him. Sure, I can freeze him. But he's going to survive that, and he's going to wreck your day, and May cannot get away. He can jump to you. Even if you think you got away, that's the messed up part. Even if you think you outran him, he gets that leap in, and you're done. It's like almost he's tricking you. He's messing with your mind. He's like, I can get out of here. I'm going to wrap this corner, and all of a sudden, bam, he's on top of you, and you're dead. So he's very interesting character. I totally agree. It's very skill orientated on how you approach him. He's definitely one that you have to, when you're playing against him, you have to seriously give it some thought.
Because his playstyle isn't binary. Like any of the other tanks, like D.Va is another offensive tank design, but like the way you play her is really straightforward. You like boost in, you shoot the back line, you block the return fire, you boost back out. You know what I mean? Like she's a flanking tank. You see it in her kit. But with Winston, it's this real strange like all in. You know what I mean? Like you're not really about harassing. You're about being like, there they are. I'm killing them, or I'm taking their entire team's damage. And it's tricky to know when you can actually get away with it. And the best part is most of the times when you do, it'll completely crush whatever's going on. Like the tank being able to just jump on the backline and kill 2, maybe 3 people, like that's huge. And it's totally in his wheelhouse. It happens a lot. My only real issue with his kit is I absolutely love his ultimate. It's really, really fun. It's really, really strong. It's really, really effective. I don't see a lot of synergy with it. Because I understand that the way the ult's supposed to be used is it's supposed to disrupt, right? You're supposed to use it to like shove people off of points, control points like that and things like that. And it works and it's effective, but Winston almost plays like an assassin in my mind because it's all about finding those windows where you weave in, kill somebody, weave back out, you know what I mean? So while it gives you the ability to just like front load a ton of damage and, like knock people off points and get aggressive, I don't necessarily feel like it fits him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's not a mechanical argument, it's like a thematic argument.
Yeah. I definitely see his ultimate as more like utility based. So like saving it until you have like 50 health left and then ulting, and then just like causing chaos and maybe hopefully getting a squishy up against the wall. That's the worst feeling ever.
Oh,
like,
the corner punch?
Yeah. Like if I'm Mercy and I'm like, okay, Winston just ulted, and then he gets me like up into a corner, and he's just like, and there's nothing I can do. There's like absolutely nothing I can do unless someone randomly flies like in front of me. Then maybe I can shift to them, but most of the time, no. So that's like probably the only way that Winston can get killed with his ult, besides on like control point maps where there's holes everywhere. So he's great on those maps, definitely. But yeah, like you said, his ult doesn't really synergize well with teams for the most part. It's just I kind of view it as more like a big heal and then like cause some chaos, and then after his ult's over, it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Or like a large shield. Like for example, one of the times I use it the most, right? And keep in mind, like Winston is my go-to pick on any single control point. If it's Ilios, if it's Li Jiang, if it's Nepal, I'm playing Winston. That's who I'm playing. The thing I use it for the most is, a lot of time, is like you said, almost defensively, because it'll be like, okay, we're on a high percentage, they're about to make a really strong push, they have ultimates up, I see the blizzard come down, so I know to start the ult before I get frozen so I can front load the damage, you know what I mean? So it's a good ult, it's really fun, but it's very strange in my mind. I feel like it could almost be like retooled to work differently, because I mean, it's supposed to disrupt and it's supposed to save you when you're at low health, and I feel like there might be a way to do it better. You know what I mean?
So from your perspective, do you see, because you play Winston obviously a lot more than I do you see Winston being more of a threat mitigator, a harasser, in the sense that when he pops his ult, I know me personally, I'm like, well, angry monkey, I'm out of this scene. And I tend to work around the angry monkey and avoid him while he's doing his thing. So it kind of drains him of his resourcefulness because he's got nobody to attack because everybody's running away. And in a sense, that's also disrupting the flow of the team. So if everybody's running in, if Winston's team is running in while Winston's going crazy, it almost disrupts the whole flow of everybody just from the pure harassment of everybody trying to avoid him.
Yeah, it's true. But on the same note, that amount of chaos that it can create too can be almost backfiring on him. Like, for example, Winston is a hero I go to a lot, but I do not like him on the first point of King's Row. And the reason why is because on the first point of King's Row, so the logic is he's great for it. He can jump straight on the point, drop his shield, and start capturing it, right? The problem is when he does that and the team's instinctive response is to, like, scatter and split out, right? All the places they scatter in King's Row on that first point give them tactical advantage. Because it's all, like, in the buildings, or it's on the roof, or it's around corners. So, yeah, you did what your job is, supposed to do, in that you went and you disrupted them, but now your team has absolutely no way to get at them at all. You know what I mean? And that's a mistake I've seen people make a lot when playing Winston. It's sort of like the logic of knowing when to jump in. Because if you jump in too early and your team can't back you up, you might get a kill, you might get 2 kills, but it won't matter if your team can't do anything off of it. You know what I mean? So I think it's a much more difficult ult to use than it looks like on paper. Because on paper it's just like, hit the button, punch stuff, never die, sweet. But there's a lot of finesse required in order to execute it properly.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're telling me it's not just hit a button?
No, it's not Death Blossom. It's not Death Blossom.
Yes.
Oh, no.
On the subject of Death Blossom, all I'm going to say, other than what's already been covered about Winston, he's my go-to tank for most maps. I will not play him on the attacking side of Gibraltar for the first point. That's Reinhardt's territory. I will only play Reinhardt or Diva. As One Eye said, he has his moments where he really shines, and he has his moments where there are better options. As a Reaper main, if I see a Winston, you have such a big hitbox. You're such a giant monkey. I really don't even have to aim very well. I can just kind of like point my gun at your shadow, and I'm gonna probably get a headshot or close to it. Like, there's nothing more satisfying playing Reaper than to get in on a Winston and be able to 2 or 3 shot him and watch him drop. It's just so much fun. I believe that is probably his biggest weakness is a Reaper, followed by McCree and Tracer. But I don't have
honestly. Reaper, I think, is his most interesting interaction with everybody because it's a lot like what you said. Reaper's spread is like designed so that he's really only effective at close range. But the problem is especially with Winston in particular, since his frame is so big, there's like this sweet zone around 20 yards where Reaper does like 10 damage to you a shot and you don't notice it. And then you step like a yard closer, just an inch, and all of a sudden he's hitting you for like 150, 200 a shot. Like, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And knowing that sweet zone is so hard to do, especially like in the chaos of a push. And the other thing too is a perfectly executed bubble, because it works either way. Like, if an opponent's inside of the bubble, they can't shoot out of it, right? So, like, the dream execution for bubble, in my opinion, is like Reaper goes to Death Blossom and you just drop it on top of it. Because the thing is like, it'll break the bubble, but eating that 600 damage from Death Blossom is pretty helpful for your team. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a lot of that damage, you know what I mean? So the interactions with Reaper is just so tough because everything is just really close and it can go either way. That's why Reaper is a really scary offensive character for me to go on because, 90% of the time, he's just going to smoke form out. He's just going to shift and it's going to be a non-factor, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And another part of the time, he's just not going to pay attention, and I'm going to kill him before he even notices what happens because I'm going to, stun him with the leap and hit him for, 100 damage right away. It's easy peasy. And then the other part of the time, he's just going to turn around and, just blow my head off because I missed by a little bit and I'm in that kill zone. Yeah. The Reaper is a really terrifying matchup for Winston in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I have so much fun on Reaper. And it's interesting that, at least in my opinion, a feast or famine character like Winston struggle so mightily with another feast or famine character like Reaper, assuming he has played at an average or higher skill level. It's almost like I enjoy when I see a Winston and I'm on Reaper. It's like, well, it's gonna be good. Like, it's not Zarya, so he's got his shield, sure, but you can get inside of it. With Zarya, you can't. It's not a Roadhog where I can get hooked if I'm stupid and stand in one place. And then, Roadhog got his heal. It's not like a Reinhardt where he's got his shield and he can just spin and he can pin me if my smoke form is on cooldown, if I'm not careful. It's not like Diva where she can just bop me around, where she's got her defense matrix to stop a lot of my damage. It's like, I'm in on you as Winston. You're probably going to die, or I'm probably going to die because of positioning. Because again, like when I said, Winston's Tesla cannon, once he starts engaging, as long as he has eyes on you, it does not stop hitting you until you die. He loses sight of you, or it runs out of ammo and he has to reload. So it's just like you said, it's probably the most interesting interaction that Winston has with any other character is a Winston and a Reaper just like locked in a battle to the death. The only difference
I think it's because they're... Sorry, you finish and then I'll...
Well, the only difference is that if Reaper has his smoke form off cooldown, if he feels like he's in over his head, then he can just smoke form out. However, Winston can still chase him down. So I mean, it's just this like epic matchup of who's going to kill who once they're engaged.
I think it's because both of the characters are designed to all in. Like, I already explained how that concept applies to Winston, right, in the way that you engage on a team. But if we look at the way that Reaper's designed, he's designed to flank, right? Like, you're supposed to slide around on the outside of the fights, look for vulnerable people, and then you're supposed to kill them. It's a very similar design to, say, Tracer, right? But the big difference there is Tracer zips around, flanks, and then just sort of whittles people down with her SMGs. And that's how she contributes to the team. Reaper, though, you have to wait for these moments where you can just go into, like, melee range, all in them, and kill them, and then eat their soul and, smoke form back out. So I think that's why Winston and Reaper butt heads so much when they actually encounter each other, is because they both have to all in. Like, there's never an interaction with Reaper and Winston where one of them limps away. Like, somebody always dies in that fight. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's what makes it so high pressure. Because, I mean, there are tons of times where I've thought I've had a fight, and then I've just crossed that line and gotten too close, and all of a sudden I'm at, like, 200 health, and he drops me with one shot.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. It is a really... It's one of those fights where, like, your hands get kind of shaky. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, anyone else have any other thoughts that they want to drop on Winston? I think One Eye and I are the two we play him the most. However, Tifa is like the goddess of Overwatch, and she has like 6,000 games played on every character. So she might have something else to add. But I think we covered him pretty well. So
yeah, it might be interesting to bring up like how he's been patched over time. So in the beginning of Beta 2, right, double Winston was really common because the 2 shields was just unbreakable, right? It was just too much to get through with 2 shields. And then they nerfed his shield to 600. And on the same patch, they also added more cooldown to his shift. So it was like a big loss to him. And then after that, they reverted some of the cooldown on his shift. But I think now he's in a really good place. I definitely think that there's just situations where he's really needed, like on control maps. He's so good on control maps. But then, like when I said, he's not good for every situation. And there's definitely better picks sometimes. But overall, Winston's really fun, and I really love his lore. His lore is amazing. I love his one-liners, especially with his interactions with like Tracer. If you ever heard them in like
So
the
much
starting
peanut
area.
butter.
Yeah. It's so funny. So he's a great character. He's a fun hero to play. But yeah, I think he's in a really good place right now.
he likes to
The
talk
other thing
a lot
I
about
wanted to mention
museums
too, the thing about Winston is, even though we're talking about how, like, to play him at his most effective, it's kind of difficult, like more so than you would think. I really recommend him a lot for new players because he still has a pretty good buffer where, like, even if you misjudge something, you can probably still get out. You know what I mean? And the other thing too is playing him sort of forces you to understand a lot.
Positioning.
Exactly, a lot higher difficulty concepts without as much punishment. You know what I mean? So I like Winston because he's easy to play, difficult to master. So I always recommend him a lot to new players. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. He's probably the easiest tank that's not Reinhardt to pick up just because you don't have to aim. It's just it's essentially a spray and pray. He has a panic shield, and he also has a way to engage. However, there's really no way to disengage unless you use your jump pack more defensive than offensive, which I have seen people do, and they kind of do it. It slows down the tempo of team fights, but it provides Winston an out, which is nice considering how so many other characters have disengages. So yeah, definitely beginner friendly. One of the recommended heroes to play if you want to be able to soak up a bunch of damage. If you were just starting out in Overwatch, he's a good tank to pick up.
It's nice because he's more about the flow of the game than the actual like specific mechanical ability. You know what I mean? He's like the opposite of Widowmaker, who's just like, I can see the hallway. I'm just going to stand here and have to make sure that my shots are exactly on point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So he's good to understand exactly what Overwatch is.
Very true. Right, considering he's also the leader. Like again, going back to the lore, like. He's a staple in team fights. He's a staple in the game. He's a staple in the story. Like, you know, it's just there's only one Winston for a reason. There's only one animal character right now for a reason, and that's Winston.
I want that plush.
Yeah, it's a cute plush. It's a cute plush. So
Him and Stitches can hang out. You know, it'll be a good time. Stitches and Ramus.
Look, what I'm waiting for is when the Tracer butt pillow is going to come out.
The Tracer butt mouse pad. Oh man.
They'll do it after the next animated short. Oh, you know what, Jeff Kaplan, I'm gonna send this to you. Just watch the last 2 minutes, buddy. You just got a great product idea. So. Well, we're sitting right short of 90 minutes. This was supposed to be like an easy, calm week, and we ended up having our longest show yet. So, Huzzah and Konshu, man, you added some really good dialogue. Like it's been a pleasure having you on the show. So, with that, we'll go ahead and start doing our sign-offs. And Konshu, since you are the man of the hour and a half, we'll go ahead and start with you. Where can we find you at when you are not guest hosting on The Guardians?
You can find me very easily in the most awesome streaming site in the world at gaming.youtube.com/Konshu. Or if you're not there, you can also hit me up on Twitter at twitter.com/Konshu.
Outstanding. And guys, if you watch me stream, you'll also see him in my chat. And occasionally, whenever he takes days off of work, he'll jump in and play with One Eye and I as well.
Which is my favorite. I love Konshu so much.
It's so much fun.
Makes my life so much easier.
May is Bay. Outstanding. So One Eye, you're up next, man. Where can we find you?
As always, I'm pretty easy to reach on Twitter over at NA1eye. I tend to be pretty responsive on there. And then as far as plugs, we've been pretty busy with Multitapped. There's some big things coming out. I've done some collabs with Arthur X Jason. Those will be coming out soon. And then I've been trying to sort of synergize promotion between the two podcasts. And this week's episode of the Multitap podcast will be on modern versus retro gaming. So it should be really exciting. As well as our guest will be the one and only Benevolent Dick NES. If you like sarcasm and extremely difficult retro Nintendo games, I recommend his channel. So that'll be next Wednesday if anybody wants to catch me there.
Yeah, make sure you guys check it out. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I'm
It gets a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it does. I've listened in on a couple of the episodes, but yeah, we're definitely gonna have to give it another couple of listens, guys. So don't forget that name, Multitap. Good podcast. Tifa.
I kid you not. Just like before, like last week's episode, we went over RPGs, and it ended with a discussion of how VR RPGs are a threat to society. So it's kind of that level of ridiculous. So there's the heads up.
That you should have led with that because that just hooked me. Like now I must include this in my weekly programming. Like I have to listen in. I have to watch. Like I must do this. But Outstanding. Good
Sounds
to hear.
like a sword art online.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my argument. Is like it's just turning into anime. That's just what you're saying.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Tifa, where can we find you at?
So you can catch me on Twitter. It's at Tifa Please, PLS. And I check it often. You can message me. My DMs are open, or tweet at me, whatever.
Very cool.
Yep.
And as for me, you are watching this stream, this podcast on my channel, gaming.youtube.com/veritechgg. I stream daily. My schedule is in my channel banner, so if you go to that homepage for my channel, you'll see when I stream. I almost never deviate except when I do, and that's usually on Fridays because I'm doing this podcast. I have a deal with my wife. I'm allowed to stream 90 minutes anytime during Friday. I did not today because we were out buying her a new laptop, but you can catch me here. And also on Twitter at VeritechGG. I have it linked to my tablet and my smartphone, so I try and respond whenever I get a message or a notification on there, so you can catch me there. If you guys don't have any other closing thoughts, we will go ahead and close this out. My name is Veritech for Konshu, One Eye, and Tifa Please, saying catch you next Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, for the latest and greatest episode of the Guardians podcast. We'll see you then.